choose to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their gilt rings. Right, the bouncer's gilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
This is COLM McGuigan for IFL TV. Frank Smith, the man in demand. You're getting more like Eddie Hearn every day I look at you. Is this what you do? Do you try and be Eddie Hearn?
Yeah, I mean, I thought you were turning the camera around so I could see myself. How? In what way? I want to know. I actually think this is what I think. Eddie's regressing in terms of his outfits, and I'm going the other way. But I'm not trying to be him. I would just like to clear that one up right now.
You've got the Eddie Hearn kind of hairdo going on from a few years ago. You've got that little beard going.
Mate.
Like, look at your get-up as well. Like, you wear things that Eddie Hearn would wear. It's like you want to be like him.
Eddie hasn't had this hairline in about 15 years.
Hairline, but hairdo, like the same kind of like little wavy
wavy
comeback.
Covey Wames?
Right, wavy combs. Right, Frank, there's a pressing issue, and the IFL listeners and faithful are going to be fuming that I'm giving you the time of day to talk about Eddie Hearn here, so let's get right to it. Robert Smith made some crazy comments today to say that Conor Benn actually shouldn't be fighting. We're in a position where you're doing a press conference here with Conor Benn on stage. Yeah. Can you comment on why Robert Smith has done that?
Conor Benn has been cleared by the National Anti-Doping Panel, a panel which is a higher power, essentially, than UCAD by the British and the British Boxing Board of Control. This appeal process could drag on and on and on. There's no date set for it. And the board's saying they're ready for it. They're not ready. But I'm not going to get into the legalities of it. He was cleared by the NADP, right? The higher power when it comes to doping in the UK. When it comes to an appeal, 99% of the time, an appeal is going to go the same route as the first one. What does Robert Smith want him to do? Sit and wait? Because this is all down to Robert Smith. This is like Robert Smith deciding to appeal this decision. So Conor Benn is free to box. He's cleared to box, and he had to go through a process to box in the US as well. So I'm not going to. We work with the British Boxing Board of Control every week. There's a limit as to my opinion on things, but at the end of the day, he's been out of the ring for 18 months, and he's cleared every process people have asked him to do, and then they decided to appeal the decision that he won on, and that's where we are.
The question that I need to ask you though is, he's fighting this weekend. You and Eddie both reiterated comments yesterday to say that he is cleared to fight by the British Boxing Board of Control when they had a conversation with the ABC, is it? Now we're at the point.
It would have been the commissions, so the Florida Commission.
So why is Robert Smith coming out today to say something completely opposite?
Because he wants. Look, firstly, Robert Smith never does interviews about anything, and throughout this whole process, he seems to have found a voice to talk. It's like he's out of everything else. If anything else goes on, you don't hear from Robert Smith. But this morning he's on Talksport on his favourite show with his mate Simon Jordan, who they're texting each other about results and when people had to sit. The whole thing, it's an agenda from Talksport, and they're in with Robert Smith, and I don't quite understand it, because he doesn't talk on any other matters like he talks about this.
But what would the benefit be to Robert Smith to come out and say that Conor Benn should not be fighting this weekend, when you've already both said, you and Eddie, that he already has cleared it? Well, the British Boxing Board of Control have cleared it with the commission out here.
I don't know. I haven't got an answer to your question. That they communicated with the British Boxing Board of Control, who said there's no issue with him fighting. So there is no issue.
Do you think that Robert Smith has an agenda against Matchroom then? Do you feel that that's possible?
No, I don't believe he has an agenda against Matchroom. I believe the stance, the position they've taken throughout this situation is different to the position they've ever taken on anything else before. That's what I'd say. And you asked him to go to deal with the situation with UCAD and the British Boxing Board of Control, which he did via the National Anti-Doping Panel, which is the panel that are in charge of all anti-doping issues in the UK. He was cleared, his suspension was lifted, and the British Boxing Board of Control decided to appeal that. So, I don't know why. I don't know. But there's no point taking it. If you're not going to listen to the decision they make, like, don't we then have to start questioning what we're doing? So if you're saying the people who decide what happens with doping measures are the National Anti-Doping Panel on behalf of above UCAD, right? So if they then make a decision, why are you then saying, no, we don't agree with that decision? Where does it end? That's what I'm trying to say. Where does it end? At what point are you comfortable? What, he appeals and then what do they do next? Oh, he wins the appeal again. Oh no, he's still not allowed. I listened to him on the radio earlier. I'm not going to. So if he wins the appeal, is he then cleared to box? Well, no, I'm not. I can't talk about that. It's like, well, no, you can't. What are you saying? So I believe there's an agenda on that front that they just a stubbornness to not listen to the decisions of the route they went down.
If Conor fights this weekend, will there be any retrospective action then taken by the board? Because Robert Smith's coming out publicly and stating this.
There can't be. He's got no license with the British Boxing Board of Control. They can't take any stance.
So
why is he even talking about it?
Well, what's the benefit of him doing this? What is the reason? Is it to try and make sure Conor doesn't fight this weekend? Is there still a possibility that you will pull up due to his comments?
No. Conor Benn is fighting this weekend. He's been cleared by a number of parties in the US who have been through a lot of have been through a lot of information to make a decision to allow him to fight. So it's not up to Robert Smith. But he's on his mate's show with Simon Jordan, who we know they share text exchange when we had the whole situation with Robert Hellenius. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. At the end of the day, Conor Benn's cleared to fight. He's not suspended, and it's never ending, is it?
Do you feel that this will ever end? Do you think that it kind of on Saturday
he said it in the interview though? He said, okay, if he wins the appeal, Jim White said, if he wins the appeal, so he's then free to box. Well, we can't talk about that. No, it's not. At what point does this stop? So he wins the appeal. What, you're still not going to let him fight in the UK? That's restraint of trade. They can't even stop him from fighting in the UK, even now, with a foreign boxer application. Like they could say, well, you need to do X, Y, Z. Provided he follows it all, it's restraint of trade.
Why did he not fight in the UK? Why did he fight over here then?
Because the timings of certain things he had to deal with, paperwork he had to deal with, this made sense, this show. But, at the end of the day, the board are going to put everything in place to try and make it as difficult as possible. He said it openly. When they said, can he box after he wins the appeal? Well, I don't, we have to look into the, I'm not going to talk about, He didn't say, once he wins the appeal, which was what was said before. When they said, okay, if he goes and clears himself with the National Anti-Doping Panel, who administer all of these things for the board, he's cleared to box. Right, they didn't agree with the decision. Okay, fine, go to the appeal again. So if the NADP stick with the same decision, you're going to keep stopping from boxing? Where does it end? If you're saying they decide, you're just not going to listen to it. So,
Adam Catterall's tweet, I think it was 2 days ago. What did you make of that?
Oh, he's got an agenda as well. He's a pillock, isn't he? Adam Catterall. But he just, look, there's so many people with opinions throwing out agendas that suit them. I look at journalists I respect who, have got behind. Look, a journalist who has been involved in a number of these discussions along the way, Matt Lawton, for example, a well-respected journalist who is not favouring the athlete, for example. He's not. I'm not picking a journalist that no one knows about. He's a respected journalist who's been in not just boxing but sport for a long time. Look at his position on it. So I respect journalists who actually do the digging and look at information, not just follow a narrative, an agenda that suits them and people that they, their mates. So Adam Catterall, that show, Fight Disciple, some of what they say is sense, some of it's a load of rubbish.
Last one from me. We'll move away from this. You told me you had a call today. You actually told me you'd invite me on that call and you didn't. Can you give us an update on those shows that we spoke about yesterday? Newcastle, for example.
I just finished the call, so got to follow up with an email now. It's very, it's high level stuff over here, mate. It's not just
Pat McCormick, Lewis Ritson, going to happen?
No. But we're working on a few bits. News soon. Actually, I'm working on something that might really interest you, actually.
Go on.
No, I'm not telling you. Teasing you.
Okay, final one. Bivol.
Actually, that was part of the discussion now, which the conversation's ongoing. Spoke to Vadim last night, and hopefully we'll have some news soon, and you'll be a very happy man.
Frank Smith, thanks very much.
Thank you, Colin.
You to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their gilt rings. Right, the bouncers' gilt rings.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,